Story 63 of the Fairy Ring. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Reading by Lars Rolander. The Fairy Ring, edited by Kate Douglas Wiggin and Nora Archibald Smith. Story 63. The Valiant Chatteemaker. Once upon a time, in a violent storm of thunder, lightning, wind, and rain, a tiger crept for shelter close to the wall of an old woman's hut. This old woman was very poor, and her hut was but a tumble down place, through the roof of which the rain came drip, 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 on more sides than one. This troubled her much, and she went running about from side to side, dragging first one thing and then another out of the way of the leaky places in the roof. And as she did so she kept saying to herself: "Oh dear! Oh dear! How tiresome this is! I'm sure the roof will come down. If an elephant or a lion or a tiger were to walk in, he wouldn't frighten me half so much as this perpetual dripping." And then she would begin dragging the bed and all the other things in the room about again, to get them out of the way of the wet. The tiger, who was crouching down just outside, heard all that she said, and thought to himself: "This old woman says she would not be afraid of an elephant or a lion or a tiger, but that this perpetual dripping frightens her more than all. What can this perpetual dripping be? It must be something very dreadful." And hearing her immediately afterwards dragging all the things about the room again, he said to himself: "What a terrible noise! Surely that must be the perpetual dripping." At this moment a Chatteemaker, who was in search of his donkey, which had strayed away, came down the road. The night being very cold, he had, truth to say, taken a little more toddy than was good for him, and seeing by the glare of a flash of lightning a large animal lying down close to the old woman's hut, he mistook it for the donkey he was looking for. So, running up to the tiger, he seized hold of it by one ear and commenced beating, kicking, and abusing it with all his might and main. "You wretched creature!" he cried. "Is this the way you serve me, obliging me to come out and look for you in such pouring rain and on such a dark night as this? Get up instantly, or I'll break every bone in your body." So he went on, scolding and thumping the tiger with his utmost power, for he had worked himself up into a terrible rage. The tiger did not know what to make of it all, but he began to feel quite frightened, and said to himself: "Why, this must be the perpetual dripping. No wonder the old woman said she was more afraid of it than of an elephant or a lion or a tiger, for it gives most dreadfully hard blows." The Chatteemaker, having made the tiger get up, got on his back and forced him to carry him home, kicking and beating him the whole way. For all this time he fancied he was on his donkey, and then he tied his forefeet and his head firmly together, and fastened him to a post in front of his house, and when he had done this he went to bed. Next morning, when the Chatteemaker's wife got up and looked out of the window, what did she see but a great big tiger tied up in front of their house, to the post to which they usually fastened the donkey. She was very much surprised, and running to her husband awoke him, saying: "Do you know what animal you fetched home last night?" "Yes, the donkey, to be sure," he answered. "Come and see," said she, and she showed him the great tiger tied to the post. The Chatteemaker at this was no less astonished than his wife, and felt himself all over to find if the tiger had not wounded him. But no, he was safe and sound, and there was the tiger, tied to the post, just as he had fastened it up the night before. News of the Chatteemaker's exploit soon spread through the village, and all the people came to see him and hear him tell how he had caught the tiger and tied it to the post. And this they thought so wonderful that they sent a deputation to the Rajah with a letter to tell him how a man of their village had, alone and unarmed, caught a great tiger and tied it to a post. When the Rajah read the letter, he also was much surprised, and determined to go in person to see this astonishing sight. So he sent for his horses and carriages, his lords and attendants, and they all set off together to look at the Chatteemaker and the tiger he had caught. Now the tiger was a very large one, and had long been a terror of the whole country around, which made the whole matter still more extraordinary. And all this being represented to the Rajah, he determined to confer all possible honour on the valiant Chatteemaker. So he gave him houses and lands, and as much money as would fill a well, made him a lord of his court, and conferred on him the command of 10,000 horse. It came to pass shortly after this, that a neighbouring Rajah, who had long had a quarrel with this one, sent to announce his intention of going instantly to war with him; and tidings were brought at the same time that the Rajah who sent the challenge had gathered a great army together on the borders, and was prepared at a moment's notice to invade the country. In this dilemma no one knew what to do. The Rajah sent for all his generals, and inquired of them which would be willing to take command of his forces and oppose the enemy. They all replied that the country was so ill prepared for the emergency, and the case was apparently so hopeless, that they would rather not take the responsibility of the chief command. The Rajah knew not whom to appoint in their stead. Then some of his people said to him: "You have lately given the command of 10,000 horse to the valiant Chatteemaker, who caught the tiger. Why not make him commander in chief? A man who could catch a tiger and tie him to a post must surely be more courageous and clever than most." "Very well," said the Rajah. "I will make him commander in chief." So he sent for the Chatteemaker and said to him: "In your hands I place all the power of the kingdom, and you must put our enemies to flight for us." "So be it," answered the Chatteemaker. "But before I lead the whole army against the enemy, suffer me to go by myself and examine their position, and, if possible, find out their numbers and strength." The Rajah consented, and the Chatteemaker returned home to his wife and said: "They have made me commander in chief, which is a very difficult post for me to fill, because I shall have to ride at the head of all the army, and you know I never was on a horse in my life. But I have succeeded in gaining a little delay, as the Rajah has given me permission to go first alone and reconnoitre the enemy's camp. Do you therefore provide a very quiet pony, for you know I cannot ride, and I will start to morrow morning." But before the Chatteemaker had started, the Rajah sent over to him a most magnificent charger, richly caparisoned, which he begged he would ride when going to see the enemy's camp. The Chatteemaker was frightened almost out of his life, for the charger that the Rajah had sent him was very powerful and spirited, and he felt sure that even if he ever got on it, he should very soon tumble off. However, he did not dare to refuse it, for fear of offending the Rajah by not accepting his present. So he sent back to him a message of thanks, and said to his wife: "I cannot go on the pony, now that the Rajah has sent me this fine horse. But how am I ever to ride it?" "Oh, don't be frightened," she answered. "You've only to get upon it, and I will tie you firmly on, so that you can